I'm Hers, and today I'm here to share with you the most important business lesson from studying 2600 billionaires. And it is this. What? Cannot see this? This is the invisible genie lamp. And guess what? All of us has this lamp, and the genie that lives inside this lamp grants us unlimited wishes, not just 3. Which means that anything we want, it could seem impossible for others, it could look like a fantasy for others, but it can be granted. And I'm going to share with you a simple 2-step process to bring this genie out of this lamp. Step 1, decide the impossible you want. It could be early retirement, it could be becoming a millionaire or billionaire, it could be travel the world for free, right? Once you have decided, go on the internet and instead of typing how to, let's say, retire early, just type people who have retired by the age of 35 or 40 or whatever the age that you want, right? And get as many people as you want, like 10, 20, 30, 40, as many people possible, and make sure they're from different industries, make sure they're from different nations, and most importantly, their starting point has to be worse than your starting point today, so that you don't have that excuse that, okay, they had this leverage, because most probably we all have that excuse, right? And by the time you are done with the list, your genie will be out in the form of an underlying pattern. That pattern will be common amongst all of those 30, 40 people, regardless of their nation, industries, and the circumstances they came in. All of them who has ever made it, they all will have the same underlying pattern. For example, let's take one of the most impossible sort of a situation you face in a business. A technology comes and they wipe your industry out later on your business. A better competitor comes and they take your entire market because their product is actually genuinely 10 times, 100 times, 200 times better. What would you do in that situation? In that same situation were Fuji Films and Kodak. Kodak doesn't exist today. They got vanished. Fuji Films exist. You know the reason? They could not fight the change. When they saw that physical film reels were dying, no film studios, no photographers were using those physical films, they decided to ask themselves a simple question: is there anybody else in the industry who still needs that physical film? And indeed there were. You know who were they? Medical industry. They still need those physical films for X-ray and other type of scans. And guess the revenue of Fuji Films today? It is $21 billion. Another classic example, shift happened when we went from mobile phones to touchscreen smartphones. Nokia was on the receiving end this time. And guess what? We all, I cannot say all, but at least most of us here thinks that Nokia doesn't exist anymore. Is there anybody here who thinks that Nokia doesn't exist anymore? Okay. Not only they exist, but they employ 75,000 people and their revenue today is $20 billion, which means they're as big as Infosys or Airtel today. So what did they do when their mobile business died? Simple. They asked themselves, are there anybody else who will need my infrastructure services that they had built, the telecom carriers that they had built to run their phone business? And indeed there were companies. Today Nokia supplies telecom infrastructure to almost all the biggest companies you know in the world, including Jio and Airtel today. One classic example of David and Goliath I will give: Amazon versus Barnes and Nobles. When in the early days of Amazon, when they launched their e-commerce platform, Barnes and Nobles copied them, exact same thing, exact color palette, everything. They came in the market. Amazon had to save its life. What did they do? They introduced jewelries, because Amazon were nobody. They could sell anything to anybody, and that's exactly what they did. They started selling jewelries. While on the other hand, Barnes and Nobles, they were known as the book retail chain. You could not sell jewelries. It's not your business. Tables turned years later when this time Amazon was the Goliath and Barnes and Nobles were David. And guess what Barnes and Nobles did? Followed the exact same strategy. Barnes and Nobles turned their physical bookstores into book cafes to save themselves from Amazon. One more classic example I will give is Square, the card reader processor that founded by the founder of the Twitter, Jack Dorsey, right? They had to save themselves from Amazon. And what did they do? Exact same thing. Find an unique audience for the existing product you have. You cannot compete with the better technology. So The point I'm trying to make here, all these examples I have taken, they come from different industry. One is a fintech company, one is a retail chain, one is a bookstore, right? One is a company selling physical film reels, right? All of these examples, all these companies were facing one simple problem. The problem was a new technology coming out and they're wiping you out. And the solution, one simple underlying pattern, that was find an unique audience for the existing product. And the same thing is applicable to each and every single problems or things that we face in our day-to-day life, like as a business person I'm saying. So this was just one of the 25 strategies in my book. And when I studied all the 2600 billionaires, I found there are only 25 underlying pattern for all the business problems in general, where regardless of the industry or the circumstances, all these companies were just using the same patterns. They might have not realized that they are doing the same thing, but they were doing the same thing. And it's not just applicable for businesses as well, by the way. So we might think, okay, the underlying pattern behind every success, maybe it's applicable only to business, but it's not true. It's applicable to everybody. You might be in a job and you want to climb up the corporate ladder, you want to be a CEO. Just go and find 30, 40, 50 people who had worse a starting point than yours, and you will find the same pattern, same strategy used by every single one of them. I'll give you a very personal example of a very recent time. Chapter 20 of my book talks about organic virality, and I use the same strategy to script my first video, and I got 770,000 views. Next video, 1.5 million views. Now I have a creator studio. The point that I'm trying to say, that no matter what you want, just try and find that underlying pattern, because if James Dyson, sitting on his wife's salary for 5 years, can try 50 to 100 times only to be copied by the world's biggest appliance company, and he still makes it in the top 4 richest person in US and 168th in the world, trust me, we all have that invisible lamp, and that genie is there waiting to grant us any wish that we want. All we need to do is just bring the genie out, find the underlying pattern. Thank you so much, everybody.